In this episode of In the Loop, art imitates life, which is why it's no surprise to see real-world plot lines end up in movies and TV. Coming up, we'll show you how Hollywood is taking on reproductive rights like never before.
It was the first plotline to really focus on the person having the abortion instead of on the doctor, the lawyer, the detective, the police officer.
Plus, for decades, Holocaust survivors have been able to share their first-hand accounts of genocide. But soon, there won't be any survivors left. We'll tell you more about technology that will allow survivors to continue telling their stories in 3D long after they're gone. This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. We'll get to those stories in a few, but first, we have a new edition of our Next Level series, which dives into the world of gaming and tech. Tonight's focus, AI art. It's almost gotten good enough to mimic a real artist's work, down to their own special style. And while it might be cool to think how far this technology has come, this new ability is presenting some serious questions about the ethical, legal, and moral boundaries of taking something that someone spent hours, days, or even weeks making and essentially just stripping it for parts. Next Level correspondent Matt Picht breaks it down for us.
Artificial intelligence is getting scary good at making artwork, good enough to pass for humans in some cases. Platforms like Midjourney, Lensa, and DALL-E allow humans to turn a handful of keywords into a staggeringly specific, surreal work of art. Computer algorithms can now transform your selfies, create gorgeous digital landscape paintings, or depict a wide array of realistic-looking people with slightly too many fingers for comfort. But behind the curtains of this new technology are billions of artistic images scraped off of the web, and the artists who created those images, in a lot of cases, aren't happy with how the robots are using their work. The rise of AI artwork has sparked organized protests and divided art communities, as artists try to assert some measure of control over the new technology. As artificial intelligence becomes more prevalent across a wide range of industries, the fight over AI art could shape the future of this groundbreaking tech, and the limits we place around it.
I found out because my friend messaged me and he said, like, hey, I don't know if you noticed, but someone is using your stuff as an AI art model and they won't tell anybody who it is. Like, they're hiding it.
Deb J.J. Lee is a freelance illustrator and graphic novelist whose work has appeared in several prominent publications. In December 2022, they were alerted to a post of some AI artwork which bore a striking resemblance to their own work. The user later deleted that post after being confronted, but the AI model used to produce that work is still out in the wild. Lee doesn't know who else has access to the model, or if someone will try to replicate their art again.
It was just devastating, because my work takes a long time to do, and if you're just like taking stuff and just putting it into a machine and it just spits out ones and zeros, like that's just insulting.
Lee isn't alone. Tons of artists have found their work mimicked by AI generators without their knowledge or consent. For these artists, AI artwork is starting to look a lot like theft, and a potential threat to their job opportunities. Illustration is traditionally a very bespoke practice. An artist gets a specific idea or prompt and spends hours sketching, outlining, coloring, and shading their work until it's finished. Artists spend hundreds or thousands of hours on practice and experimentation to improve their technique. And better techniques lead to paid commissions, project work, and other jobs artists can use to support themselves. AI, by contrast, can't come up with ideas on its own. It must be handed a series of keywords by a human. Once that's done, the AI digs through its database of billions of images, finds the elements that line up with the keywords, and synthesizes them into a finished work. Better AI art doesn't come through practice, but machine learning. A human or artificial appraiser tells the AI what art works and what doesn't, and it updates its parameters accordingly. This method can lead to some stunning results, but AI artwork is only as good as the datasets it's looking at. If an algorithm is trained on a specific artist or style, it can sometimes feel like it's indirectly copying that artist's work. The issues become big enough that artists have started to rally behind collective movements.
This idea that AI companies or tech companies in general are able to just take whatever data they want just because it's online, it will be a bigger issue than creative people wanting to protect the rights to their work.
Rachel Meinerding is the co-founder of the Concept Art Association, an organization originally created to recognize artists that illustrate inspirational images for movies, television, and video games. The association is currently spearheading the Support Human Artists campaign, focused on raising money to lobby for regulatory change about how AI is used in creative industries. Illustration is hardly the first field to face the threat of AI automation, but the reliance of AI art on the work of human artists could give the industry more of a say in how this tech develops. The cause has attracted a lot of support from an industry that hasn't had the same sort of regulatory muscle as other creative firms.
Visual artists typically, historically, haven't had like an organizational power behind them because they're all individuals. So I think it's kind of amazing and beautiful what we're seeing right now with the artist community kind of banding together to be like, hey, I might just be one artist, but collectively we're a huge voice.
Most artists realize that calling for an end to AI development isn't realistic. Instead, they're asking for more control over how their data is used for AI projects, restricting commercial models to open source or opt-in images. These restrictions would make it tougher for AI platforms to create high-quality art, but it'd allow artists to post their art online without worrying about it showing up in an algorithm.
Artists so heavily rely on these portfolio sites and Instagram for passive recruiting.
For years, all of us artists have been putting art on the internet so that we could get jobs, because that's how the job market is these days. We had no idea we were being scraped and our art was being collected to train this thing that was going to, that they're trying to use to replace us.
John Lamb is a storyboard artist at Riot Games and organized the Create Don't Scrape hashtag to protest AI art.
Artists would never ask for permission to be fed into these machines. We were never given any sort of agreement or percentage. And now the makers of these programs are trying to enter our industry, trying to replace us with the data that we unknowingly provided.
Lamb and other artists have been critical of some of the measures AI platforms have taken to appease artists, like creating opt-out forms to exempt them from training data.
That's a company placing the responsibility that should have been on them onto the people who are being affected. I feel like that's unfair. And I feel like if you were planning on monetizing to begin with, everybody should have been made aware of what was happening.
Ultimately, the responsibility for better data curation falls on AI developers. Without strictly pruning the data AI learns from, these algorithms often fall into the worst patterns of human behavior.
The reason we're in this mess right now is because it was not curated and nothing was regulated and everything was just a free-for-all on the internet. So restart this thing ethically from the word go.
It's hard to say where the AI art fight goes from here. A lot depends not just on the technology, but on the cultural and regulatory framework that surrounds it. Right now, AI artwork is on track to get even better and more realistic in the future. That ability rests on the human artists that are powering the algorithms with their labor. Whether those artists get a say in how their work is used in AI art could determine where the technology goes in the years to come.
All right, many thanks to Matt and Jennifer Smart, the graphic artists behind some of those animations in the piece, No AI Art Detected. If you're interested in hearing a bit more about this issue, you can catch the full Next Level episode on our Scripps news apps and check out the other stories in this series. It's time for us to take a quick break. If you need a snack, now might be the time to grab one, because when we come back, we're talking about food. From food roasting emissions to drama over fake meat, yeah, there's a lot to unpack. So grab a bite and meet us back here in a few.